Welcome to Maths Bridge. We shall continue our exploration of JavaScript programming concepts. JavaScript is a part of web development is what we've been discussing. Web development consists of both backend development and front-end development, right? Client side and server side development. Primarily we are focusing on front-end development, means like a client side development. So part of the client technologies, what we have seen is like HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So currently we are exploring JavaScript programming concepts as a front end development. Let's get into today's session. Let me launch VS Code, Visual Studio Code IDE. It picks up our previous project where we had been left over. Okay, we have a website development the project wherein we have a HTML code, CSS and then JavaScript. Okay, so we also looked at various things on this. Now primarily we are going to focus on JavaScript coding, programming techniques in JavaScript, right? Any other programming language like a C, C++, Java, Python, here also the programmatic the basic fundamentals are remain same for developing a JavaScript source code. Okay, JavaScript coding. Okay, but only thing is that first when we start learning, what normally we say is like writing a console messages. In case of C, we use like a printf statement for redirecting the string onto the console, whereas in Java system.out.println is what we use. In case of Python we use like a print. Similarly in the JavaScript we use like a console.log. Interesting part is that in the world of like web development, there is a three ways that we can actually send a the text message. Either you can actually redirect this message to the console or on the web page, or we can also show as a pop-up message. This is the ways that we can normally do in the world of like a JavaScript. We will see like these things as per our basic understanding. Okay, let me launch the our index page using our open server. Okay, it pops up, right? So these are the basic things that we would be actually covering, right? So our index.html shows me like JavaScript output, executable statements, comments, syntax. We looked at a couple of variables, what are the types of variables that are available and what are the data types that are available. We'll see one by one. So let me recap again. When we look at HTML page, if you would like to see the source code of the HTML page, you right click on this page and then look at like view page source. For inspect, you use like inspect. Let me actually open the inspect because our primary interest is on that area. Okay, here it is. Great. So we are not really getting into all, but look at what is there in the console. Right, these messages you don't need to worry, so that should be fine. So you can right click here and you see any clear console message. Great, that's happening, right? So from there, if you reload the page, what you have to do is like come here and then click refresh this page or reload the page, right? When you reload the page, any scripts that are associated with HTML should have been executed. So in this case, like it's already executed, because if you look at here, my first.js is a script, and the line number 1 we have this message, right? So go back and look at here is a our script, right? So line number 1 we have the console.log message, and hence I could see that in my console here, right? This is what it is. So let's try actually write one more message here. Console, hello, how are you? Okay, so this is the this statement actually should end with semicolon, because this is how JavaScript syntax defines every executable statement should end with a semicolon. Okay, let me save this one and then go back and then in the web browser and then see, already gets reloaded because of the change recognized by the live server and then reloads the page, and hence I could see now here in line number 2 I have one more console message, which is what I could see in the statement. You get it? That's the beauty. So we also talk about alert method, ALRE, right? Alert, and what we do, like you say like hi, let's say, and click on enter. We'll end with this and then enter it. Do you see? You get a pop-up message. So that's why when you want to actually pop up the user, you can use like these alert boxes. You can also have them in your code too. Let's say here alert, enter the name, okay, and end with the semicolon and then save it. The minute you save it, you can see here there is a pop-up message, enter the name. Clear? Very nice. When we spoke about a JavaScript programming, first thing it reminds me what is mean by program. Okay, and when we say program, we all could remember program is nothing but a instruction set to perform a particular task. But only thing is like it also reminds me like what is meant by an algorithm. Correct. Algorithm means like sequential steps to execute the execute or perform the particular task. So I would say like sequential, but not necessarily always a sequential. There could be like a conditional, branching, looping, and all. So sequential steps, right? If you write a sequential steps in your own way to perform a particular task, is nothing but an algorithm. Algorithm can be implemented in terms of a programming language, right? In our cases, like what JavaScript is a programming language. So within the JavaScript programming language, if you can write it, that is called your JavaScript program. That is how, right? So but notations remain same. Let's say you are trying to compute adding two numbers and then storing the result into a different variable. Let's say c equal to a plus b. Okay, a plus b. So a is one memory location, b is in another memory location in terms, right? A is nothing but a variable, b is in another variable. The variables are used to store the value. It's an operand. Plus is like an operation, right? A plus b computes and then produce the result. The result will be stored in another variable called c, right? So if you have a computer and then let's assume that you fed the code into the computer, got it, and then you are trying to execute this code, and then that particular code looking for like an input. So user actually provides an input, and then based on the input, this code perform a particular task and produce the output. The output will be displayed on your console or web page. In our case is like a web page. Is it? So if you have JavaScript code, and assuming that you are already integrated with your HTML, okay, and then loading onto web browser. So web browser recognizes your code. Browser recognizes your JavaScript code and treated every JavaScript executable statement as a command, and then it executes and then produces an output. The output would be displayed on your web page. It can be on the console message, it can be on the pop-up message, it can be on HTML screen by itself. That's it. Got it? Here is the generic block diagram typically that you can see. in computer. So we have a CPU, we have input devices, we have the output devices, we have the memory. Input device is like a keyboard, output device is like your display video. CPU is a central processing unit. Okay, CPU interacting with like input device, output device, and a memory. Memory is a place where we store the data. Okay, we have RAM, ROM, hard disk, and flash. You might actually have them all, right, in your day-to-day life. So but understanding how CPU interact with the memory, input device, output device is very important. This, so probably you would actually cover as a basic computer architecture. If you already gone through that, you understand. Otherwise, better just to have them reviewed once, so that you can visualize things very neatly, nicely, conceptualize yourself for building your programming concepts. Okay, from our reference, what I would actually refer is like mostly we are going to deal with like a memory. So memory, you can imagine that you have something like this, a big placeholder space for storing the variables, right? These are kind of a storing the data, right? This is how I think you can visualize. So every memory location actually referred by the address, hardware address, what we can call it as. Okay, so hardware address. So this, let's say, programmatically, how do you refer this one? You name with a logical name. Let's say this is a variable a. Okay, this is variable a, and this one probably variable b. What happens? Okay, this is variable c. Okay, let's say c equal to a plus b is what you are trying to compute. That means like variable a refer to a memory location, this one, and read the content of the memory. Let's say we have a value 2 here, value 3 here. That means like it fetches the value from this memory location, and then fetches the value from memory location point into the b. This is 3, and then recognize this operator, and then perform the operation, and then result, right? The result will be now storing into location c. That is probably this one. Got it? This is how I think you see. So my point to be emphasizing here is like memory locations are referred by the logical names is known as a variable names. These variable names which we refer in the program to store the data. When you are writing the programs, right, that means like what we spoke about instructions in terms of a computer. So these instructions like c is equal to a plus b is like an instruction. So these instructions has its own life cycle for execution life cycle. What it means, like CPU fetches the instruction from the memory and decode the instruction. Decode means like what operands we have, what operation we have to perform, right? And then perform the those details, right? So determine the operation and fetch the operands, because the values that is required, because now we know that operands and operation, then you execute that. Once you execute, it produces an output. The output will be now storing back to the memory, right? Results will be stored in either in the memory location or displayed on the console. So this is what we can call it as a instructions execution life cycle. So how CPU interact with the memory, fetch the instruction one at a time, and then decode the instruction, determine the operations and operands, fetch the operands, perform the operation, and produce the result. The results will be stored in designated place. Either it can be like in the memory or on the console display. Clear? This is one more thing that I think it is nice to understand basic view, because in Java code, right? JavaScript code, every statement which we refer in JavaScript code is nothing but a kind of a command to the web browser. Web browser treating as a JavaScript command and execute it and then produce the output on web page. So few concepts that we can also refer here. While writing a program, what we can understand is like there are the statements which are called as a executable statements. There are the statements that we can also call them as a non-executable statements. Non-executable executable statements nothing but is like comments. So I think we all know that, right? So why we need to have a comments in the code? Comments are not a computer recognized statements, because in order you to ignore them from the execution, what we have to say that these are kind of a comment lines. Let's say this is the console message. So that means like the line number 1 is now commented. It means like it is not going to be recognized as a executable statement, and hence excluded from the execution. That's a kind of an idea, because code readability point of view we use a single line statements, and then multiple line statements also as in a comment lines. For instance, you can also do this way, right? In middle you can write like multiple thing, right? This is a sample program, to add two numbers, something like that. So I can use like a single line comments, or the block of the comments, by using these kind of things. So this is kind of a code readability point of view, explaining the logic that you do develop, or uh, let's say like someone actually developed the code that you wanted to understand what this code written for and all. That time like it is nice to have like an add some kind of a notes to refer, right? These are not part of an execution, but it will be a part of your code. That's kind of like understanding of like what is meant by comments. Okay, executable statement and non-executable statements. I hope you are clear, right? Next thing is like when you see something like this line, this means like this is like an executable statement. Every executable statement ends with a semicolon, right? Here it is. This is another important point that you have to take away. Let's say if you wanted to actually add the two numbers, what you have to do, you have to create a variable. Let num1 and how much num1 is called, let's say 5, and let num2 how much, maybe 4. So what you say, let result equal to num1 plus num2, and then you have to display the result, right? So we can put it in console message. What you have to do, you have to put like a result. Let's say sum of num1 and num2. Result end with. Okay, so when you do this and then save the changes, go and actually reload the page. Do you see already the computation is done? The sum of num1 num2 is all 9, it displays. Right? So we have seen that like in JS output, JavaScript output statement, executable statements, comments, syntax, also creating variables. We will do like a little more magic to it. So can we actually read the data from the input? So instead of like you hardcode the values here, let's take the user inputs. Right? How do you take the user inputs? Maybe you can use prompt and enter num1. Okay, what you do, like num1, keep it, and this value, is it here, or you should this go here? Num1. Okay, and then num2 equal to prompt num2. and then end with this. Now it computes and then give the console message. Let's try out this one. Okay, already loaded. Do you see num1? Enter the value, let's say 10, and then it prompts the second one, num2, maybe enter the 20. So 10 plus 20, how much? Right, sum of num1, num2, 10, 20. What is wrong in this case? So you just go and inspect it, what it happens. So value that you are actually getting as a string, maybe adding as a string. So if you want to convert into integer, you have to convert them as an integer value. When you read the input, right, so input is sort of like a character set. What you have to do is like you have to convert that into integer. So what you have to do is like you have to use like integer parse int, apply it to the prompt instruction. So what it happens is like when user enters the value now convert into integer, and then converted integer value is going to be stored in your variable called num1. Similarly, you apply this also to the second line, here in this case again same. So and then you try. Now what happens is like you will be seeing the result as an integer sum. Okay, let me save these changes and then go to your page. Okay, it is already trying to load it. What you do, enter num1 as a 10, num2 as a 20. Do you see the result here? Num1 plus num2 is 30. Got it? So this is how you can write a programs. So console message, variable declaration that and then how you are actually reading the input from the user using what sort of instruction that you use, how do you convert them, and then adding them together, and then storing back on the different memory location is called a variable called results, and then that result is what you are going to show on the console message. But you can also see them as an alert message, alert, and then put your result. So and save the changes. So let's look at now again. You try to execute 10, 20, and the result also you got here, right? So these are the various ways you can actually start writing your code and then test your logic by redirecting the result message onto the console or on the HTML pop-up window. So let me recap. The line number 1 is actually the comment line, single line comment. Line number 2 is Console.Log to display the log message on the console. Line number 3 to line number 6 is called a nested block statement, okay, block of comments. Commenting the multiple lines using this sort of a syntax. Single line comment and then block comment. Line number 7 is empty. Line number 8 is kind of a variable declaration statement. Let num1, let num2, variable name. Here line number 10 and 11 where you are actually reading the data from user using prompt and parsing them as an integer, storing integer value num1, num2, and computing the sum at line number 12, and the result will be now in the result. So the result value will be displayed using your console message at line number 13. You can also display the same result on pop-up window using alert message. So you use like an alert, console message, and variable declaration, and prompt, and then parse conversion of data type is what we learned in this session. I hope this helps. Okay. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, click on bell icon, and leave the comments. Happy learning. Thank you. Stay tuned to upcoming sessions.